the name of Mother Mary and your Queen Kat Torres, the Messiah, I'm Jesus Christ, understand me?
Jesus Christ famously forced people into prostitution and loved money.
I'll describe myself as a model, as a guru. Now I describe myself as a prisoner.
That's because you're in prison for all of your crimes. Hello lovely people, my name is Emma. Welcome back to my channel and welcome if you are new. Today I wanted to share with you a story, a kind of, I said erupting, unfolding, an erupting story. That does sound more dramatic, actually. That BBC I reported on. If you've not seen or read anything from BBC I, their Global World Services team investigates different news stories and reports on them. I think they're really, really good. So I read about this story and then watched the documentary Like, Follow, Trafficked. I think you'll see why this story grabbed me. It has kind of everything that I'm interested in. We've got like a lifestyle coach, Instagram guru, faux spiritual wellness coach / cult leader, human trafficker. Yeah, it's crazy. We're talking about a woman called Kat Torres. She is like an obvious rags to riches sort of dream tale. She was a poor girl from Brazil, had a difficult family life, who rose to become an international model. She's partied with Leonardo DiCaprio. She knows all these rich and successful people, including Russian oligarchs, apparently, who may or may not have been her boyfriends / sugar daddies. She's an Instagram model, so every photo she takes is absolutely stunning. She has this most amazing life. We'll come back to that later. I describe her as like the evil version of Cara Delevingne, where Cara has this rags to riches, famous model story, but she went down the path of like bisexual icon, all about freedom of expression, queen of multiple industries. Guys, she's so good in cabaret. Kat Torres became a culty fake psychic human trafficker, which is a pretty bad title.
Behind the perfectly curated Instagram posts and the promise of all the love, money and self-esteem that you always dreamed of.
I've only recently done a whole ass video on why Instagurus and wannabe Instagurus selling lifestyle courses is completely ridiculous. And it's a terrible idea to pay for one. You should not do that. So granted, Torres is using her psychic abilities in part to sell her courses, which I guess gives her an extra edge on the average Instagram guru, but still. If you think realistically for 1 second about what qualifies someone to sell you a complete life change, financial, relationships, personal growth, having an apparently nice life on Instagram should not be the qualification. Like, how did Kat Torres get, again, supposedly, as far as we can tell based on her Instagram, how did she get all of those things? Well, by becoming an international model. So unless she's selling modeling tips, any advice she's going to give is pretty redundant.
She was so blissful, she was so sweet, and then she turned into an absolute narcissistic monster.
So, quick kindness in the comments PSA. I'm going to be mum for a second. I generally really don't like to armchair doctor, and I feel like it's important for me to say here, it's generally not helpful to people who do suffer narcissistic personality disorder to always have it be brought up in the media in a way that demonizes the people that struggle with it. It's a continuum. It's not something that people choose. Lots of people struggle with it and do their best to live with it and don't deserve to be just sort of lumped in with life's villains. However, if you have had experiences with a narcissistic person, especially if you've been codependent and you know what living with that is like, you might resonate with a lot of the experiences described in this documentary. It's a delicate balance, right? Talking about our experiences with narcissism, I struggle with finding the best way to do this because we don't want to demonize a whole disorder. And armchair diagnosis is just in general not a good idea. We are not psychiatrists. But for people who have been victimized by a narcissist, identifying those traits and that manipulative behavior is kind of part of understanding that it was not you who was always at fault, always doing something wrong, being wrong, and that you deserve to be treated like that. That's kind of an important part of the healing process. Because we have such proactive mental health awareness now, which is a really good thing, there can be an instinctive negative reaction to, for example, when this guy, when he says she was a total narcissist, it might come across a bit callous and maybe isn't the most helpful way to describe Torres, but at the same time, there's a serious weight behind those words. There's a lived experience there that needs to be respected. TLDR, some people who are expressing that sentiment are doing so with all the trauma and years of recovery work that goes along with that experience. Similarly, somebody with MPD or somebody who knows someone with MPD might express the opposite sentiment, a justifiable outrage that this term narcissist is thrown around in such a negative way. And they're doing that with all of the hurt and experience associated with, that negative stereotype. Basically, it's a delicate topic where people on any side can be hurting. So I just wanted to urge a little compassion if you want to engage in any conversations about the psychological aspects of this. I might mention my experiences and how I see it relating to things in this documentary. When I do that, I'm not trying to demonize anyone who has suffered with narcissistic personality disorder. But at the same time, if you think there are more empathetic ways that I could express myself, please let me know down below. Sorry for the long and boring interlude. Let's get back to Kat. So the BBC iDoc opens with Kat Torres and her backstory. She had troubles at home, so she did modelling as a way to get out of that situation. She got a European modelling contract and it all took off. Good for her.
And it was Instagram that enabled her to build and monetize her own wellness brand.
Instagram.
And she always had very beautiful photos.
With the best will in the world, babe, she's a model. Like, of course, she's got the most beautiful photos there, probably taken and edited by professional photographers. Or at least she's been trained from a young age to look happy and sexy and gorgeous in photos. Realistically, this dream Instagram kind of vibe problem is worse than ever because now everyone has an amazing camera in their pocket. Now there's filters and AI tools, it's not that hard. You don't have to work very hard or spend very much money to take amazing looking photos and have the most beautiful looking life. Everyone and their mum is an Instagram model now, and it's just so far from reality. That's why I'll continue to post photos with a messy background and #no filter. Maybe I'm lazy. Maybe I'm just helping society. Seriously though, I am genuinely sad that a whole generation is growing up with Instagram models as normal representation. It frightens me a little bit. At least when it was just magazine covers and TV and stuff, it was removed enough from our general everyday lives that there was some distinction, right? With Instagram, you get this weird parasocial insight into people's lives. These Instagram models will do videos and photos while they're making breakfast, and you can feel like you're getting insight into every moment of somebody's life, and it still all looks beautiful and amazing and perfect. And that's why people pay stupid money for Instagram guru courses. I know you guys don't want to hear about UK politics, but this is a funny thing, I promise. There was a candidate for Reform UK who was accused of not being real, and it turned out it was because he'd used AI to edit his photo of himself to put himself in a suit and tie. It's so stupid, and the picture looks fucking nothing like him, but that's how easy it is to fake a perfect life in your photos. That it's easier for a guy like that to Photoshop himself than it is to put on a suit and tie and take a new photo.
Her goal was helping people really achieve and manifest their dreams for themselves.
You'll know I love manifestation. It just bothers me, and I don't think it's intentional a lot of the time, but thanks to Instagram and other social media, I don't want to put it all on Instagram, but this was a big Instagram influencer, so that's kind of where a lot of this is coming from. So many people feel so entitled and qualified to give other people important life advice and get paid for it. I know some people genuinely have good experiences with life coaches. It just seems too broad to me. Financial advisors, they're their own specific field and they get paid a lot of money to do what they do because they have a lot of expertise that comes from years of study and training. And yet some life coach with 0% of that training feels qualified to teach you about that and everything else in life. Same thing with fitness, personal trainers are justifiably expensive, but these gurus can do all that as well. Financial advisors, personal trainers, fucking complete life transformationists. If you've been through hardships and now you have a successful, happy life, fucking good for you. Why does that make you qualified to tell other people how to live? I earn money. I can't teach people how to manifest their own. Shit doesn't work like that. And if it did work like that, these people, because most of them are just doing it to get money, they would just be using those tools themselves. Most of them wouldn't be training their competition.
Self-care and wellness influencers had exploded online. Anyone could establish themselves as an expert, regardless of their qualifications.
Thank you, BBC I really do like them a lot.
Her website and subscription service offered paying customers advice on relationships, business success, and spirituality.
This, for me, is where I lose faith that she had a real desire to help people. Like, okay, but as soon as finances are involved, it becomes kind of something else, right? And you know, $130 a year? If I believed there was no risk involved in following a life guru who gives you specific advice, which I do, if I didn't think that, then I think $130 a year, it'd be okay. But the more success they get, the more courses they run, the more money they cost. And Kat Torres, the more successful she got, the more followers she got, the higher her prices went. She just wants to help people. And yet, the more money she's making, you'd think the cheaper she could make her courses, if she wanted to help as many people as possible. So it's a good time to remind everyone that I am a complete hypocrite because I have my own lifestyle course. It's a $1 guide to being a silly little guy. Comes with a PDF workbook, video tutorial. I just think mine is more practically helpful for your everyday life, especially if you're a silly little guy.
Kat admired John of God, a controversial Brazilian medium who was later convicted of rape.
It's Bikram yoga again. This is just market research, right? What can I emulate? At the same time, I do think that if you have a certain type of personality, you could look at these spiritual leaders and convince yourself that, actually, yeah, I do have an amazing gift.
She also followed the work of Tony Robbins.
Bro, being a Tony Robbins fan is like the #1 business guru red flag. Fucking Tony Robbins, dude. Yeah, that's how I do my yoga. Put on a full face of makeup, I get my hair did, I put on my thong and I'm ready to go. Yoga, in my experience, is a group of sweaty people grunting and farting on a dirty gym floor. And it's great. But it's not this. So this is Anna, who was a client of Kat Torres and the first person to get kind of trafficked, essentially. Not even essentially, to get trafficked by Kat Torres. She talks here about how she was absolutely at rock bottom when she found Torres. She had suffered abuse, she was physically unwell, and no conventional medicine or therapy was helping her. She turned to the spiritual as a last resort. This is like the ideal situation for a cult leader, an abuser, a human trafficker to take advantage of somebody. And that is a pattern throughout the people that Kat Torres recruited.
Her wellness empire was built on half-truths, lies, and an obsession with money.
I fucking told you. As soon as the money thing comes up, it gets dodgy. I think it's an understandable outcome of poverty in youth to idolize money like some people do. But when money is like a driving force, well, I mean, look at every like billion-dollar company treating its workforce like crap, not giving a shit about the environment. Like 1 Timothy, anyone? 6:10? For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils.
It was obvious to me that someone was paying for all this. She had very, very nice clothes, she had very nice purses, and the reasonable assumption is that she was, you know, a sugar baby.
Here is where the misdirection starts with so many of these lifestyle gurus, right? They have to already be successful and have this beautiful life, but they need your money so badly. In this case, Kat Torres had essentially other secret income sources. So to fund that lifestyle up front, she had sort of secret income streams, but a lot of gurus will just lie. If you've ever looked at an MLM before, that's kind of the gold standard of pretending you have a brilliant life. You have to manipulate how you present your life to show that you're already seemingly successful and amazing, but you so desperately need people's money that you do all these weird dodgy tactics to try and get it. There's also the people that kind of delicately dance around the truth, posting photos of like fancy cars and mansions and things, and then in the description it's like, I'm manifesting that this will be my home next year. There's plenty of ways to deceive an online audience. For example, you guys think I'm a regular human earthling. Speaking of staged photos, you can't play the keyboard like that, Kat. There's a cat in the way of those keys.
I was like, yeah, she's hot. She's got a Russian billionaire giving her money. Like, good for her. I get to enjoy it too. You know, I get free rent.
This guy fucking YOLOs. I love his vibe. So allegedly she had this Russian oligarch boyfriend, a friend of Putin's, which is a fucking red flag if ever I heard, who was funding her lifestyle. I would bet good money, like £3 or £4, that she never suggested that as an option in her courses when she was teaching people how to manifest their own money.
But her entanglement with some of Hollywood's elite led her to the psychedelic drug ayahuasca.
Uh-oh, don't do drugs, kids. Yes, it's technically a religious ceremony. Some people have very good experiences with it. I would argue some people have very good experiences with all kinds of hallucinogens. Some people will have very bad experiences. If you're thinking of trying ayahuasca, I will note that lots of people experience vomiting, diarrhea, and paranoia And those things are all considered a normal part of the process. I just feel like you can have spiritual experiences without shitting yourself in front of people. If you have a bad trip, your trips can last 6 hours. You have to plan carefully if you have any kind of heart condition, if you're taking certain medication, it can interfere with the drug. Here's the key thing that stood out to me when I was reading about this, right? People with certain psychiatric disorders can see a worsening of their symptoms after taking ayahuasca. That can often result in mania, which I think is interesting, given that people that know Kat said she changed dramatically after taking ayahuasca. Some people can get benefits from ayahuasca. There is also some research to suggest it could help treat certain conditions. I personally am happy with a cup of tea and a biscuit. I've never had a 6-hour paranoid trip from a rich tea biscuit. You get me?
Kat says from a young age she had a spiritual gift of making revelations and predictions.
Uh-oh.
After her ayahuasca sessions, it quickly became a key feature of her self-help persona.
Couple quick things spring to mind here. She's had this gift from a young age, but it didn't feature in her self-help guru persona until after the ayahuasca. Bit sus. Could just be that she didn't want to sound like a quack when she started, and then after the ayahuasca, this gift became more important. Now, since she had already written a book about her life with spiritual aspects, I think she was probably always predisposed to thinking she had some kind of psychic power. It's possible that she viewed that as something more or more important after the drug. I say this because I knew someone who was forever having predictions about the world come true in this incredible way. And it took me a long time to realize that they were, consciously or not, reinterpreting the past to make that the case. Either way, the addition of the psychic spiritual aspect into Kat Torres' guru teachings is the turning point where we get into actual cult territory, for me.
During our consultations, Kat commented on her entities. For those who are Christians, she said the entity was God. To skeptics, she said they were moments from the past and memories.
That is so interesting that she's deliberately adjusting her spiritual reality to always make sense to the customer, the client. There's no room for the client to not believe in what she's talking about because she'll just adapt it so that it makes sense for their worldview. She will manipulate reality to make sure that she's always right. It's fucking sinister.
She talked about the people who strictly followed her instructions and how happy they were, while the customers who didn't listen to her and the voice were left depressed and suffered disastrous consequences.
There's no doubt in my mind that that is deliberate manipulation. Doesn't mean she doesn't believe in the voice and her amazing supernatural powers, but she was absolutely manipulating people into doing what she wanted.
Eu não sei como se chama o termo, mas foi em transe. Eu escrevi ele todo em transe, foi com uma voz mesmo lá de cima.
Fuck, that's how you finish a book? Here's where Torres begins to isolate her followers. She's telling them things like the voice has told her that their relationship is very toxic and they need to leave it. Anna is the first person she manipulates into coming to work for her as a slave. Anna had been studying in Boston at the time, but Torres convinced her to move hundreds of miles to be her live-in assistant. She was supposed to be cooking, cleaning, looking after the animals, all for about $2,000 a month.
I was used to seeing her in this perfect Instagram feed, always looking her best. And then when I got to her house, it was shocking because the house was really messy, really dirty, it didn't smell good.
That's why I post photos like this on my Instagram. For real, if we learn nothing else from this story, let it be that we can force positive change by posting a goofy picture on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, post a goofy pic for me. I'll post my own right now. There's mine. I call this thumb pose. It's one of my favourites. You gotta get the angle just right to look as much like a thumb as possible. Now it's your turn. So, surprise, surprise, Anna says that what she found when she arrived at Torres' place was not quite what she had imagined based on Instagram. Anna says that Torres was basically unable to do anything by herself. Like, she'd have to be on standby talking to Torres while she was in the shower because she couldn't stand to be alone in silence. Anna says the only time she was able to get a few hours sleep in a row is if Torres was out with one of her boyfriends. And then whenever she'd get home, even if it was 2 or 3 in the morning, Anna would have to wake up and be there for her. She used to tell Torres that she was going to work out in the gym so that she could nap on a yoga mat just to have a break. And guess what? She never got paid.
After 3 months, Anna finally managed to leave, but the hold Kat had over her meant it took over a year to break contact.
Honestly, that's pretty impressive. I was in a super toxic friendship with a person like that. sans the psychic abilities, for about 10 years. And I knew it was awful, causing me daily stress, and I desperately wanted to leave for probably like 3 or 4 years before I could finally do it. I think however long it takes, cutting that contact is a serious achievement. So there's an interview with a former neighbor of Torres's. I love him, Wayne, he's brilliant. And he refers to her as the human trafficker who lived across the street, which I think is brilliant. Can we start referring to Andrew Tate as like the human trafficker, the sex trafficker, instead of his name? I feel like these people deserve it. They're making a career out of dehumanizing other people. How about a little bit of your own medicine, human trafficker? So Wayne says that Torres and her husband were very unfriendly neighbors. If he would wave, they'd never wave back. If he said hello, they'd never say hello back. And this is a little cul-de-sac in some place in Texas. Like, you gotta be friendly with the neighbors. I'm antisocial as all fuck, and even I say hello to my neighbors. So she moved into this mansion with her 21-year-old boyfriend. Anna had said earlier that she tended to have a lot of younger boyfriends. She was only like 27 or something at the time, I think. So I don't think it's too dramatic, given her whole shtick was manipulating and drawing in generally younger people and people in really vulnerable situations. It's probably worth noting they didn't pay rent for whatever reason. They never paid rent on this property and they got evicted. All their stuff was left out in the yard, so helpful neighbor Wayne thought that this was weird enough to save.
These are voodoo dolls, and then they had dried herbs in packages that were commercially made. They were good for romance, for health, for this, but 3 of them were also good for exorcisms, which I thought was a little unusual. We also noticed she had Facebook pages where she was going to heal people.
Dude. Imagine that, like your weirdly isolated neighbors who won't even say hello or wave back to you get evicted for not paying rent. Their stuff is all left on the sidewalk and you discover that they've been collecting herbs for doing spells, possibly exorcisms. You find a bunch of voodoo dolls, like what the fuck? Obviously they Googled her. I like Wayne so much. He's really like, can you believe this shit? If it was any one of those things, I feel like it wouldn't be so bad. Like if they were collecting herbs for spiritual properties, or they practiced healing magic, or they had a few creepy dolls, you'd be like, okay, they're kind of the kooky neighbor. They've got some kind of interesting pagan vibes. But all of those things combined with being weirdly unfriendly, getting evicted, and then you Google them and they're referred to as a cult leader? Like, man, I'd be telling everyone I know this story for years.
As business got busier, Kat increased her prices.
See, that's what gets me about this story, right? She seemed to be successful in her business. She had clients paying these high prices, but she never paid Anna. She didn't pay rent on that property. Where was the money going? Was it all going on like beauty products for her Instagram lives? I feel like there's a piece of the puzzle missing here. At this point, Torres starts recruiting her most dedicated followers to come and live with her in Texas. Wah wah. One woman called Desiree, who has written a book about the topic, she's portrayed by an actress in the documentary. She got a phone call from Torres crying, saying her health was failing. She was thinking about unaliving. She needed Desiree to come to Texas and be there for her the next day. And apparently before she even had processed the conversation, Torres had bought her tickets to come to Texas. Boom. Welcome to the cult. Sorry, the clan.
Kat posted on social media introducing what she called her witch clan.
So several women were coerced into living with her. There's an anonymous woman in the documentary called Sol. Again, her voice is portrayed by an actress in the doc. Desiree was lured in emotionally. Sol was a yoga teacher and a tarot performer? I don't know what the word is. Reader, probably. That makes more sense. Torres told her she would pay her to help with her wellness career, and Sol had a history of living in shelters and on the street, so unfortunately she made a great vulnerable target. Guess what actually happened? They were forced to do domestic work 24/7 and were never paid. Just more live-in slaves.
And the girl looked at me in the eyes and said, I want you to drive me to a strip club because it's in there that I'm going to find my husband. Katyusha told me that the voice in her head is saying that I have to go to this place because it's in there.
Yeah, so Torres starts manipulating Desiree, her slave, into stripping for money and eventually prostitution. She uses some textbook manipulation here, financial manipulation, emotional manipulation. She claims she was owed for all of the money she spent on Desiree, despite Desiree being again, like a live-in slave and never getting paid for it. Her accommodation, her furniture, her food, the witchcraft that Torres had done for her. She said if Desiree left, she would expense those things and Desiree would be forced to pay. And if she didn't pay, Torres would curse her. Surprise, surprise, Torres decided to manage all the money she earned. Manage it. Keep it for herself. Again, I have to ask, where is the money going? Like, Torres obviously needed money badly enough to force a woman to work excessive hours in a strip club. She also kept Desiree's passport, supposedly to keep it safe, obviously actually to prevent her from running away. Desiree tried to ask Torres if she could leave the club to focus on helping Torres with her coaching business, you know, why she was actually there. But Torres basically said, do you know how much witchcraft I had to do to get you accepted at the strip club without a visa? God wants you to be there. Literally, she told this woman that God and the angels were clearly working for her to be at the strip club, so she shouldn't deny them that.
Kat continued to seek out new revenue streams and started charging followers for spiritual baths.
Why? Is she just addicted to money, or does she have some sort of secret expensive habit? Is it just that the lifestyle she wants to portray on Instagram is so expensive that she has to keep ramping up her income? Here is this horrifically creepy live video that Torres was doing, I think from the bath, where she was telling her followers to come and live in her house.
Só que vender cursinho na internet não tava funcionando mais. Então eu quero todo mundo aqui trabalhando comigo. Eu tô trazendo os brasileiros pra cá.
Torres introduced a law of silence on the house. The girls were banned from communicating with each other. They couldn't leave their rooms without Torres's permission. This is when she tells Desiree that if you're having a bad time at the club, you could just prostitute yourself. Around this time, Sol overheard a phone call that Torres was having with a young girl in Brazil, saying that God was punishing her and she had to go and work as a prostitute. That's when Sol was like, I'd better go. Fortunately, Sol had the help of a former boyfriend and was able to escape from the house. She was still shit scared. Turns out they had like 6 guns at the house. Texas.
Maia. Tá escondida também, ela com medo.
Fuck off with that thing. I don't care if it's not loaded, don't point your murder stick at the kitty cat. Fucking animals.
Eu tenho que acordar às 5 da manhã e dormir às 2 da manhã. E assim é pra todas as pessoas da casa.
I know she has a real hold on her followers at this point, but man, if someone tells me I'm coming here to work and I gotta get up at 5 a.m. and go to bed at 2 a.m, I'm fucking out. 3 hours of sleep? Mate, I need like 12 to function. Desiree was finally coerced into prostitution, which is illegal in Texas, so Torres also used that as a threat against her. She would tell the police what she was doing if she ever said that she wanted to leave, basically. Torres set up profiles for her and another girl on sugar baby websites and things like that. She set a daily income goal for Desiree of $3,000, which is an insane amount of money. If she was getting even half that, like, where's the fucking money going? So Desiree was obviously spending nights on the street because you can't make that kind of money every day.
In the name of Mother Mary and your Queen Kat Torres, the Messiah, I'm Jesus Christ, understand me?
Jesus Christ famously forced people into prostitution. And loved money. Big fan. Torres was getting increasingly unhinged at this point, and in a sense it's kind of a relief that she was doing it publicly, because surely this banana bullshit was putting people off. In 2022, she made a post threatening Anna, calling her a traitor and saying she betrayed her and saying this stuff like, your skull will be placed in a special place in my home. Anna and Sol, who had at this point escaped, filed police reports. Brave, wonderful women. The parents of Desiree and another girl who was living there, Letitia, had lost all contact with them, so immigration police became involved. The families also started social media campaigns. It kind of flooded the Brazilian news, which is where they were from. The Instagram campaigns grew much bigger, so Kat started posting in defense of herself.
A única coisa que eu fiz foi dar emprego pras meninas e só, mais nada.
It is so weird to post a video countering claims of human trafficking against you with a sparkly filter on. The woman is on another planet. She also forced the girls to post their own videos demanding that people stop looking for them. It is the most heartbreaking, like, metaphorical gun to the head kind of content you could see. There was also this.
Mark Zuckerberg, Vladimir Putin, eles precisam achar a Kat Torres. Isso vai ser uma destruição. O mundo vai estar em destruição.
Putin and Mark Zuckerberg. The Russian president and the inventor of Facebook must seek out Kat Torres or the world will end in a big war. Yeah, it's hard to know what to say about that. What did she want? She was trying to get people to stop looking for these girls, but she wants Putin and Zuckerberg to just come to her house? Delusional doesn't begin to cover it at this point, right?
Kat continued to threaten people on social media, including her husband's father.
I want you to die.
The butterfly filters. She's threatening her father-in-law with death, and she's like, I better put a cute filter on this. Like, what the crispy fuck? Eventually, a police officer gets in contact for a wellness check, making sure the girls aren't being held against their will. Obviously, like in the videos, they say they're fine. Torres didn't realise that she was being secretly recorded, including just before the phone call where she threatens the girls not to say anything. A police officer managed to convince Torres to visit a police station in Maine. Thank fuck. Fortunately, it seems the sheriff's department knew exactly what to look for in terms of human trafficking survivors. Apparently they displayed like all of the classic signs: distrust of law enforcement, sort of a lack of will to speak without Torres's permission. A big red flag for them as well was the fact that Torres couldn't seem to clearly describe her job. She didn't have like a job. Her job, her income seemed to be just bringing in these young girls to work for her. So it was like, yeah, well, that sounds like trafficking.
Sometimes in these human trafficking organizations, the victims have a sort of quota to make, and they need to bring a certain amount of money in every day.
I suppose it's a good thing overall that this was kind of like textbook human trafficking, because at least law enforcement were able to identify it pretty easily and get the women to safety. Torres was deported to Brazil to face charges of human trafficking, slave labor, and medical fraud. Because remember, she was also selling healing spells, healing witchcrafts. This is the most interesting bit for me because the BBC actually got access to interview her while she was waiting for the verdict of the trial. This was her first trial. She should be facing more. This was Desiree's accusations against her.
Before, I'll describe myself as a model, as a guru. Now I describe myself as a prisoner.
That's because you're in prison for all of your crimes.
I am 1.5 years in jail, in real jail, with real people that committed real crimes.
Oh, boo fucking who. Like, I'm sorry. You are also a real criminal who committed real crimes. Like, just because you didn't stab anyone, some people have this association of, like, crime and harm and bad things and bad people with, like, strictly violence. It's sort of harder to get people to admit when they have been psychologically abused and stuff like that.
They were saying so many lies that at one point I couldn't stop laughing.
Can you imagine how fucking scary that would be? Like, this unhinged criminal woman just cackling while her victims testify. Torres lies like you wouldn't fucking believe in this interview. Well, it's hard to say if it's lies or delusion. I do think some types of people and people with certain conditions can convince themselves that everything they're saying is true, but it's so contradictory with things she's said before and all of the evidence that it's bananas. She says she didn't know Desiree was working as a prostitute. She thought that the money that Desiree was sending her, which was sometimes like £600 in one go, she thought that was for Ubers, that she was taking really expensive Ubers. Which doesn't make any fucking sense, because why would Desiree take an Uber and then send Torres the money? She's not the fucking Uber driver. No women lived with her. The messages of her asking girls to come live with her on Instagram, those are all fake. Like, she posted photos of the girls living at her house on her Instagram. We watched a live video that she did asking people to come and live with her, saying, I want everyone to come and live with me in Texas. She's like, no, it's all fake news.
How does it make you feel when you're hearing that former clients are traumatized?
I don't believe it. I have to say they are absolutely ridiculous and that they need to run back to their parents.
This is so fascinating. For me, it's like horrifying and bizarre to hear someone can find out that they've traumatized people and just be like, they're lying for attention. They were jealous of me. I was completely right all the time. Because one of the the final straws, I guess, with my toxic friend, the point where I was like, she's irredeemable, I have to leave, was after she had lived with an old college friend. And it hadn't gone well, which, to be honest, I knew it wouldn't, because I had also lived with this person. It was so bad that the girl moved back in with her parents and kept paying rent even though she wasn't living there. And after the fact, the girl sent her a letter, an email or something, saying the experience of living with you was so bad that I was incredibly depressed. I wanted to unalive myself. It was really, really awful. And my friend shared that with us, me and the other codependent, saying, isn't she awful? Can you believe she said that to me? And awful as it is, we said, yeah, absolutely. You were always doing the right thing and you tried so hard and she never did this and that and that's why it was bad. In hindsight, it's insane behavior and I'm still kind of angry at myself for complying when I knew she was in the wrong and was like genuinely horrified that she could hear that she'd had such an effect on a person and just not have any empathy and still feel like she was the one being hurt, being victimized. But like 10 years of psychological conditioning to behave that way for a crumb of affection, it affects you in crazy ways. Getting back to the point then, this kind of behavior, hearing that people have like PTSD from their experiences with you and being completely unconvinced, it sounds crazy. It's not that unrealistic, and probably one of the reasons people have associated Torres with narcissism, that obsession with self and the lack of empathy. The victims and Kat's former friends were rightly worried that when Torres got out, she would just do it again. She had already at that time been banned from using the internet, but wow, that's a hard thing to police.
Maybe I'm here for more 20 days, 10 more days, because there is no proof, so there is no crime, there is no way.
Utterly delusional.
I never ever was wrong, ever. So there is people that are born with no talents, and there are people that are born with all talents. I think it's me. Fame will catch me wherever I am.
I guess that is true when you become an international criminal.
Do you take any accountability for any of these allegations?
Absolutely not.
I knew she was going to say that before she even started moving her head. Again, forgive me for armchair assessing this person just based on TV, but my strong guess would be that she can't. She can't see herself as having been wrong, because she has this amazing spiritual gift. She's the center of the universe. She refers to herself as Jesus, and it's not clear if she literally means that or if she's saying, and she refers to herself as a Messiah as well.
I can tell you I'm Jesus, and you can see Jesus or you can see the devil, that's it.
It's not clear if she's literally saying that or she's just comparing herself, like she's that level of goodness and spiritual guide, but she compares herself to Jesus a number of times. In many ways, part of the reason that I struggle with this, regarding people who have been in my life as well, is because I feel like that attitude, at least, probably isn't her fault. She made the conscious decision to commit these crimes, right? To force people into doing things they didn't want to do, withholding their money and their passports and all these terrible things. She was consciously choosing to do those things, and she should be subject to all of the justice in the world for that, right? But this view she has of always being right and people just hating her and being against her, I suspect that's genuine and not her fault, not something she would choose. Most people wouldn't choose to have a lack of empathy. It seems likely that she was, born that way and is like genuine in her belief that she doesn't deserve to be in prison. She's done nothing wrong. I find it very hard to know what to do with that. Punish her for the terrible things she's done and the crimes she's committed, the things she's put people through. Absolutely. But then what? I'd suspect that she is probably at a high risk of reoffence because she believes everything she's done is right and good. It's very hard to know how to react to someone who isn't maybe capable of remorse for their actions. Can they be blamed for that? I just don't know. At the end of the interview that they do with her, after the interview when they're sort of packing up, Torres sort of threatens one of the BBC team.
Olha lá, hein? Você vai descobrir se eu tenho poder ou não depois.
Então ameaça?
I didn't like her.
Fuck him, Jesus. Good news is she did get sentenced to 8 years in prison. I'd hate to have been her lawyer. I don't know why she was so... Well, I do know why she was so convinced that she would be out of prison immediately because she doesn't think that she did anything wrong. But the evidence was astounding. I mean, we saw it in the documentary, Like I said, it's just hard to know what to expect, what to want next, because you kind of hope in an ideal world for rehabilitation, for somebody who was maybe in a bad situation, who maybe landed somewhere they didn't want to be in life, to recognize what they did wrong and show remorse and learn and grow, and then change and become a functional member of society in a positive way. But when someone is just completely unable to feel remorse for what they've done, what do we do? Do you punish someone indefinitely for that if that's not their fault? Do you release them and just try and keep an eye on them and hope they don't reoffend? Lots of lessons to be learned from this. Number one is don't trust Instagram gurus. Sorry if you know some Instagram gurus that you like. Maybe there's a couple of good ones. I'm sure plenty of them are nice. And like, you know, there's ones that have genuine skills, like genuine marketing skills that teach you how to be an influencer I still think that's dodgy, but you know, there's people that do things genuinely from a good place that aren't that bad and you can get some useful information out of. But in general, you just don't need them. Seeing that somebody has an amazing life and they take gorgeous photos, that doesn't mean anything. That's completely meaningless. Just, in my book, it's not worth giving those people your money. You might end up in a cult. Just because somebody was once stood next to Leonardo DiCaprio and might have a Russian oligarch sugar daddy doesn't mean that they are a good person to tell you how to live your life. Take all that shit with a pinch of salt, right? Nothing is real. Everything's a lie. Birds aren't real. Let me know your thoughts down below. Please post a goofy Instagram picture. I want to see it. Send them to me on Instagram. I'll share them. It'd be great. And buy my course on how to be a silly little guy. It's $1. Best dollar you've ever spent. I promise. If you did enjoy this video, give it a like, leave your thoughts down below. Maybe subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss future videos. If you just like hearing my voice or you happen to also be into gaming, I have a gaming channel at Little Duck Gaming. How many times can I say gaming in one sentence? So many. Actually, it was like 3, I think, but it sounded like a lot coming from my mouth hole. I don't know why I said mouth hole either. Come follow me over there, we have fun. I'm playing some retro games, I'm playing some new spooky horror games. It's all good stuff. Follow me over at Emma Thorne Backstage for more lifestyle vloggy stuff I'm about to record. Today, I'm going to finally open the rest of my latest PO Box mail so I can post a video over there. I recorded a PO Box mail video so long ago that I've just got another pile, so I might as well record opening that and post it all together. If you do like this channel and you want to support what I do here, you can become a channel member, you get comment priority and a cute little duck next to your name, you get some silly little emotes. The best way to support this channel is via the Patreon. With that, I must give a big old thank you and a shout out to my giant chickens and colossal quackers over on Patreon, especially Conla.
Você vai descobrir se eu tenho poder ou não depois.
Most importantly, have yourselves a very lovely week, and I will see you really soon.